Jack, a 27-year-old American journalist, time travels to Byzantium in 600 AD. What if you woke up one day in a world where news didn't exist, where rumors ruled the streets, and the truth was a luxury no one could afford? Imagine being a modern journalist, armed with knowledge of the future, thrown into a chaotic empire where words could spark revolutions or get you killed. Meet Jack Harper, a 27-year-old American reporter who's about to discover that his greatest story might also be his last. In this thrilling tale, you'll uncover how Jack battles a world of superstition, corruption, and danger using only his wits and the power of the press. Will he rewrite history, or will history rewrite him? Stick around to find out how one man's words could change an empire, and what shocking secret awaits him at the end. The sun was setting over New York City, casting a golden glow across the Hudson River, when Jack Harper, a scrappy journalist with a nose for trouble, stumbled into the story of his life, literally. Jack, with his tousled brown hair, sharp blue eyes, and a worn leather notebook always tucked into his jacket, had been chasing a lead on a mysterious artifact uncovered in a Manhattan dig site. The artifact, a strange, rune-covered stone, was rumored to hum with an eerie energy. Jack, ever the skeptic, thought it was just another overhyped story, the kind of clickbait that paid his rent. But when he slipped into the museum's restricted wing that night, October 15th, 2024, everything changed. The air grew thick as he approached the stone, its carvings glowing faintly under the dim security lights. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from the thrill of a scoop. "This is it," he whispered, scribbling notes. "The story that'll put me on the map." Then a misstep. His hand brushed the stone, and a jolt like lightning shot through him. The world spun, colors bled into darkness, and the last thing he heard was his own scream echoing into nothing. When Jack opened his eyes, the skyscrapers were gone. The air smelled of dust, sweat, and burning oil. Cobblestone streets stretched before him, lined with squat stone buildings and men in tunics, shouting in a language he vaguely recognized as Greek. Towering above the chaos was a massive domed structure, its golden roof gleaming under a sun that felt too bright, too ancient. Jack's stomach dropped. This wasn't New York. This was Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire, circa 600 AD. His phone was dead, his wallet useless, and his modern clothes, a denim jacket and sneakers, drew stares from passers-by. A woman in a coarse wool shawl muttered, "Foreigner," as she hurried past, clutching a basket of bread. Jack's mind raced. Time travel? Impossible. But the evidence was undeniable. The clatter of horse-drawn carts, the scent of unwashed bodies, the absence of anything electric. He was stranded in a world 1,400 years before his time. Jack's journalistic instincts kicked in. He needed to survive, to understand this place. Wandering the bustling streets, he noticed something peculiar. People whispered in huddled groups, their faces tight with fear or excitement. "The emperor's cursed," one man hissed. "No, the Persians are coming," another countered. Rumors spread like wildfire, unchecked, unverified. In a tavern, Jack overheard a merchant claim the city's water was poisoned, while a priest swore the end of days was near. No one knew what was true. There were no newspapers, no broadcasts, no ex-posts to scroll. Information was a void, and fear filled it. That's when it hit him. In 2024, Jack lived for the truth, digging through data, exposing corruption, giving a voice to the voiceless. Here in Byzantium, the truth was a weapon no one wielded. If he could bring news to these people, real news, he could not only survive but thrive. He could be the first journalist in history. The idea lit a fire in him, the kind of reckless ambition that had gotten him fired from 2 papers back home, but also made him damn good at his job. But Byzantium wasn't New York. This was a city of emperors and priests, where power was guarded jealously, and outsiders were suspect. Jack had no money, no allies, and no clue how to navigate this world. Worse, he felt the weight of unseen eyes watching him. A cloaked figure lingered at the edge of the market, staring too long. Was it curiosity, or something darker? Jack didn't know, but he felt the stakes rising. If he was going to survive, he'd need to act fast. He found a small abandoned stall near the city's agora, its wooden beams sagging but sturdy enough. with a stolen piece of charcoal and scraps of parchment from a sympathetic scribe. Jack began to write. His first article was simple, a report on the city's water supply, debunking the poison rumor with logic he'd learned from modern science. He didn't have a printing press, but he had his hands and a voice. He copied the text by hand, posting it on the stall's wall at dawn. By noon, a crowd had gathered, murmuring in awe at the neatly written words. "Who is this man?" a woman asked, pointing at Jack. "He speaks like a scholar, but dresses like a barbarian." Word spread. People came to read, then to argue, then to ask questions. Jack, with his quick wit and knack for storytelling, held court. He explained the world as he saw it, blending his 21st century knowledge with the language of the time. He called his stall the Daily Beacon, a nod to his old paper in New York. The name stuck, and so did the crowds. For the first time in centuries, Constantinople had a source of news, or at least, something close to it. But not everyone was pleased. In the shadows of the city's grand basilicas, powerful men took notice. A bishop with a golden staff muttered about heresy. A governor's aide whispered of sedition. Jack's words were dangerous, not because they were false, but because they made people think. And in Byzantium, thinking could topple empires. As Jack scribbled his next report under the flicker of an oil lamp, he felt a chill. The cloaked figure was back, closer now, standing just beyond the light. Jack's pen froze. He was making waves, but waves could drown as easily as they carried you to shore. What had he started? And more importantly, could he finish it before it finished him? By the end of the story, you'll see Jack face impossible odds, uncover secrets that could shake the empire, and discover a mysterious time gate that might take him home or trap him forever. Will he outsmart the powers of Byzantium, or will his modern knowledge be his downfall? Keep watching to find out how one man's words spark a revolution, and what shocking truth awaits him in the shadows of history. What happens when a single spark of truth ignites a city drowning in lies? Jack Harper, a 27-year-old American journalist, stranded in Byzantium, 600 AD, is about to find out. His makeshift newspaper, the Daily Beacon, has set Constantinople ablaze with curiosity and hope, but also with danger. As crowds flock to his words, powerful enemies circle closer, and Jack's modern knowledge becomes both his greatest weapon and his deadliest liability. In this chapter, you'll witness Jack's daring gamble to bring truth to an ancient empire, the seductive pull of fame, and the shadowy forces plotting to silence him. Will he outwit those who rule Byzantium, or will his bold experiment end in chains? Dive into a tale of wit, rebellion, and secrets that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Jack stood in the heart of Constantinople's agora, the air thick with the scent of roasted meat and the hum of 1,000 voices. His stall, the Daily Beacon, was no longer just a rickety wooden frame. It was a phenomenon. Each morning, he pinned up fresh sheets of parchment, scrawled with charcoal reports that blended his 21st century insight with the raw urgency of a city starving for truth. The crowds came in droves, merchants with calloused hands, women in faded shawls, even soldiers in leather armor, their eyes wide as they read his words. Jack had become a sensation, a strange figure in his denim jacket and sneakers, spinning tales of reason in a world ruled by superstition. His latest report was a bold one, a breakdown of the city's grain supply, proving the famine rumors were false, orchestrated by greedy traders hoarding stock to inflate prices. Jack had pieced it together by eavesdropping in taverns and using basic economics he'd learned in a college course he barely passed. Supply and demand, he'd explained to a gawking crowd, simplifying it to, they lie to make you pay more. The people roared, some with anger, others with awe. A young baker named Elias, with dark curls and a quick smile, became Jack's first ally, smuggling him parchment and ink in exchange for a mention in the Beacon. "You're mad, American," Elias said, grinning. "But I like mad." Jack's fame grew, and so did his confidence. He started calling his stall a newsstand, a term that baffled the locals, but made them laugh. When a grizzled fisherman asked why Jack's reports weren't sung like a bard's tales, Jack quipped, "This isn't a campfire story. It's the New York Times of Byzantium." The crowd howled, and Jack felt a rush. He was good at this, too good, maybe. At night, under the flicker of an oil lamp, he scribbled furiously, blending modern journalism with the flair of a showman. He exposed a fake healer peddling holy water, just river sludge, and debunked a rumor that comets signal divine wrath, using astronomy he Googled in 2024. Each report drew bigger crowds, and Jack felt alive, like he was born for this. But not everyone was charmed. In the shadowed halls of the great palace, where mosaics glittered and silk-robed officials whispered, Jack's name was becoming a problem. Governor Marcellus, a wiry man with a hawkish nose and a penchant for gold rings, saw Jack's beacon as a threat to order. He stirs the mob. Marcellus hissed to his aide, a sallow man named Leo. The emperor won't stand for it. Worse still was Bishop Theodorus, a towering figure whose sermons could sway thousands. Theodorus called Jack's writings pagan scribbles, claiming they mocked the church. Jack's worst offense? He jokingly referred to Hagia Sophia as Byzantium's news app in a report, a quip that spread faster than his actual news. To the bishop, it was blasphemy. Jack wasn't blind to the danger. That cloaked figure he'd seen before was now a constant presence, lurking at the market's edge or vanishing down an alley when Jack turned. One night, as he locked up his stall, a note was slipped under the door. "Stop, or you'll regret it." No signature, just a crude sketch of a cross. Jack's stomach churned, but he tore the note to pieces. "I've faced worse deadlines," he muttered, though his hand shook. He wasn't just fighting for survival now. He was fighting for the truth, for the people who crowded his stall each day, hungry for something real. To keep the beacon alive, Jack needed resources. Parchment and ink weren't cheap, and Elias's charity could only go so far. Enter Sophia, a sharp-eyed widow who ran a textile stall nearby. With her raven hair and a smile that could disarm a legion, she was as cunning as she was beautiful. "Your trouble, Jack Harper," she said, her voice low and teasing. "But trouble sells." She offered him a deal. She'd fund his supplies if he promoted her fabrics in his reports. Jack agreed, slipping mentions of Sophia's silks into his articles with a wink. Their partnership was electric, charged with banter and stolen glances. Sophia's laugh made Jack forget, just for a moment, that he was a stranger in time. But the pressure was mounting. Marcellus sent guards to inspect Jack's stall, tearing down a report on tax corruption midday. The crowd booed, and Jack, heart pounding, climbed onto a crate. "They don't want you to know," he shouted, holding up a fresh copy. "But the truth doesn't burn." The people cheered, but the guards' glares promised trouble. That night, Leo, Marcellus's aide, cornered Jack in an alley. "The governor wants your tongue," Leo sneered, his breath sour with wine. "Quit, or you'll lose more than your scribbles." Jack, fueled by adrenaline and defiance, smirked. "Tell your boss I'm just getting started." Jack doubled down. He trained Elias to gather rumors, teaching him to spot lies, with a journalist's skepticism. Sophia, meanwhile, used her market connections to dig up dirt on Marcellus. She whispered to Jack about a secret ledger, proof the governor was skimming taxes meant for the emperor. If Jack could get that ledger, he'd have a story to shake Byzantium's foundations. But the ledger was locked in Marcellus's villa, guarded by soldiers and suspicion. Jack, with no lockpicking skills, but a head full of heist movies, hatched a plan. He'd infiltrate a banquet Marcellus was hosting, posing as a scribe. Sophia would distract the guests with her charm, while Elias kept watch. It was reckless, but Jack thrived on reckless. The night of the banquet, Jack slipped into a borrowed tunic, his heart racing as he entered the villa's torchlit halls. Sophia, draped in sapphire silk, worked the room like a queen, her laughter drawing every eye. Jack moved fast, slipping into Marcellus's study. The ledger was there, hidden in a locked chest. Using a hairpin from Sophia and a trick he'd seen in a Netflix thriller, Jack pried it open. Pages of numbers confirmed it. Marcellus was stealing thousands in gold. Jack's hand shook with triumph, but then footsteps. Leo burst in, dagger drawn. "You're done, foreigner," he snarled. Jack dodged, grabbing a candelabrum and swinging it like a bat. Leo stumbled, and Jack bolted, ledger tucked under his arm. He met Sophia and Elias at the villa's gate, the trio sprinting into the night as guards shouted behind them. Back at the stall, Jack wrote his most explosive report yet, detailing Marcellus's crimes with cold precision. At dawn, he posted it, and the agora erupted. Merchants refused to pay taxes, soldiers questioned orders, and the poor chanted Jack's name. The Daily Beacon wasn't just news now, it was a revolution. But Jack's victory was short-lived. As the sun set, a herald arrived with a scroll bearing the emperor's seal. The message was chilling. Cease your writings within 2 days, or face exile, or worse. Jack's blood ran cold. He'd exposed Marcellus, but the emperor himself was watching. The cloaked figure stepped into the light at last, a priest, his eyes burning with zeal. You've angered powers beyond your ken, he hissed. This ends now. Jack stood in the flickering lamplight, Sophia and Elias at his side, the ledger heavy in his hands. He'd started a fire, but could he control it? The emperor's deadline loomed, and with it a choice. Stop and live, or fight and risk everything. What secret was the priest hiding? And could Jack's modern knowledge save him from an ancient empire's wrath? Stay tuned for the climax, where Jack faces the emperor's ultimatum, uncovers a conspiracy that threatens all of Byzantium, and learns of a mysterious time gate that could be his only way home. Will he triumph, or will the empire crush him? The answers will leave you speechless. What do you do when an empire demands your silence? But the truth could save thousands. Jack Harper, a 27-year-old American journalist trapped in Byzantium, 600 AD, has 2 days to stop his newspaper, the Daily Beacon, or face exile or death. His expose on Governor Marcellus's corruption has set Constantinople ablaze with rebellion. But the emperor's wrath looms, and a mysterious priest hints at secrets darker than Jack's wildest scoops. In this heart-pounding climax, you'll see Jack risk everything to uncover a conspiracy that could topple Byzantium, face a trial that tests his modern wits against ancient power, and discover a truth that changes everything. Will he outsmart an emperor, or will his words be his undoing? Brace yourself for a whirlwind of danger, betrayal, and a twist that will leave you gasping. The air in Constantinople crackled with tension, like the city itself was holding its breath. Jack Harper stood in the dim light of his Daily Beacon stall. The emperor's decree crumpled in his fist. Cease your writings within 2 days, or face exile, or worse. The words echoed in his mind as the agora buzzed around him, merchants and beggars alike whispering his name. His latest report, exposing Governor Marcellus's theft of imperial taxes, had ignited a firestorm. Shopkeepers refused to pay levies, soldiers muttered about loyalty, and the poor chanted, Jack, Jack, as if he were a prophet. But Jack knew better. He was no savior, just a guy from New York with a knack for trouble and a stolen ledger that could get him killed. Sophia, the raven-haired widow who'd become his partner in crime, leaned against the stall, her eyes sharp with worry. You've poked the lion, Jack, she said, her voice low and sultry despite the fear. Marcellus won't let this slide. And the emperor, she trailed off, glancing at the cloaked priest who'd haunted Jack's steps. The man stood across the market, his face half hidden, but his stare burned with intent. Elias, the young baker who'd become Jack's right hand, fidgeted nearby, clutching a fresh stack of parchment. We're with you, Elias said, his voice cracking. But what now? Jack's mind raced. Back in 2024, he'd faced angry editors and lawsuits, but never an emperor's death threat. The ledger, now hidden under a loose floorboard in the stall, was his trump card, but it wasn't enough. Marcellus's corruption was just the surface. The priest's warning, powers beyond your ken, hinted at something bigger, something that could shake Byzantium to its core. Jack needed proof, and he needed it fast. The clock was ticking, and exile wasn't the worst fate he could imagine. Beheading, crucifixion, or worse, Byzantium didn't mess around. His plan was desperate, but Jack thrived on desperate. He'd take the fight to the emperor himself, presenting the ledger in the great palace during a public audience. It was a gamble. Emperors didn't take kindly to accusations, but Jack bet on the crowd's support. The people loved the Daily Beacon. If he could sway them, he might sway the emperor, or at least escape with his head. Sophia arched an eyebrow when he told her. You're mad, American, she said, but her smile was electric. "I'm in." Elias nodded, pale but determined. "Let's make them listen." The next morning, Jack prepared his boldest report yet. Using every ounce of his journalistic skill, he wrote a scathing piece that not only detailed Marcellus's theft, but hinted at a broader conspiracy. Vague enough to avoid accusations of treason, sharp enough to spark curiosity. He titled it, "The Truth They Hide," and had Elias and Sophia distribute copies across the city, pinning them to tavern walls and slipping them into market baskets. By noon, Constantinople was a powder keg. Crowds gathered outside the palace, chanting for answers. Jack felt a thrill, the same rush he got chasing a scoop in New York. But this wasn't a story, it was his life. The great palace loomed like a fortress, its marble halls gleaming under torchlight. Jack, dressed in a borrowed tunic to blend in, clutched the ledger as he joined the crowd seeking an audience with Emperor Maurice. Sophia, radiant in crimson silk, worked the room, charming guards to ensure Jack's entry. Elias stayed outside, rallying the crowd with cries of truth for the people. Jack's heart pounded as he stepped into the throne room, where the emperor sat, a stern figure in purple robes, his eyes cold as steel. Marcellus stood at his side, his hawkish face pale with fury. Bishop Theodorus was there too, his golden staff gleaming, his lips curled in disdain. And in the shadows, the cloaked priest watched, silent and ominous. Jack stepped forward, bowing low to hide his nerves. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice steady despite the sweat on his brow. "I am Jack Harper, a scribe of truth. I bring evidence of betrayal." He held up the ledger, its pages trembling in his hands. The crowd gasped, and Marcellus lunged forward. "Lies," he spat. "This foreigner sows chaos." But Jack was ready. He'd memorized key passages, reciting sums and dates that proved Marcellus's theft. The emperor's eyes narrowed, and the room fell silent. Jack seized the moment, channeling every courtroom drama he'd ever seen. "The people deserve to know," he said, gesturing to the crowd. "Will you let greed choke your city?" The emperor raised a hand, silencing Marcellus. "Speak, scribe," Maurice said, his voice like gravel. Jack's pulse raced. He laid out the evidence, weaving a story of corruption that implicated not just Marcellus, but a network of officials skimming taxes to fund a secret plot. He didn't know the full truth yet, but he'd overheard enough in taverns to bluff. The crowd roared, and even the emperor's guard shifted uneasily. Marcellus's face turned ashen, but Bishop Theodorus stepped forward, his voice booming. "Heresy," he cried. "This man mocks God's order." The cloaked priest nodded, whispering to a guard, who slipped out a side door. Jack's stomach dropped. He'd expected resistance, but not this. The priest's presence felt like a noose tightening. Then chaos erupted. A guard burst in, shouting, "The city riots!" Outside, Elias's chants had sparked a mob, demanding justice. The emperor's face darkened. "You've brought disorder," he growled at Jack. "Prove your words, or die." Jack swallowed hard. He needed more than the ledger. He needed the conspiracy's heart. And he had a hunch where to find it. Sophia, quick as a shadow, had slipped into the palace archives during the chaos, following a tip from a drunken scribe. She returned with a scroll, its wax seal broken, and pressed it into Jack's hands. "Read it," she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. Jack scanned it, his eyes widening. The scroll detailed a plot to overthrow Maurice, funded by Marcellus's stolen gold and backed by a faction of priests, led by the cloaked figure, Father Gregory, who served as shadowy Persian ally. Jack's heart raced. This was bigger than he'd imagined. He held up the scroll, his voice ringing out. "Your Majesty, this is the truth they hide. Marcellus and Father Gregory plot treason." The crowd erupted, and even the emperor leaned forward. Marcellus screamed denials, but Gregory's face betrayed him, a flicker of fear. Jack pressed on, quoting the scroll's damning lines, his journalist's instinct weaving fact into drama. The emperor stood, his voice cutting through the din seized them. Guards swarmed Marcellus and Gregory, who struggled as the crowd cheered wildly. But the victory was fleeting. Maurice turned to Jack, his gaze icy. "You've proven your claim, scribe. But your words have torn my city. You'll answer for this." Guards grabbed Jack, dragging him toward the dungeon as Sophia cried out, and Elias pushed through the mob. Jack's mind spun. He'd exposed the truth, saved the emperor, but at what cost? As he was led away, Father Gregory, now bound, leaned close and hissed, "The gate awaits you, traveler. Find it or perish." Jack's blood ran cold. The gate again, his only hope to return to 2024. But where was it? And could he find it before Byzantium's justice crushed him? The dungeon door slammed shut, leaving him in darkness, the roar of the crowd echoing above. The stage is set for an ending that will leave you reeling. Will Jack find a mysterious time gate and escape, or will he face a new danger in the empire he's shaken? Stay tuned for a finale that promises shocks, secrets, and a choice that could change history forever. What if the key to returning home lies in a secret so dangerous it could unravel an empire? Jack Harper, a 27-year-old American journalist trapped in Byzantium, 600 AD, has just exposed a treasonous plot, saving Emperor Maurice, but landing himself in a dungeon. His newspaper, the Daily Beacon, has turned Constantinople into a cauldron of rebellion and hope. But the cryptic words of Father Gregory, "The gate awaits you, traveler," hint at a way back to 2024. In this electrifying finale, you'll follow Jack as he navigates betrayal, rallies a city, and uncovers a tantalizing clue to the time gate that could change everything. Will he escape Byzantium's wrath, or will the empire's shadows swallow him? This open-ended conclusion will leave you hungry for more, with a twist that'll keep you guessing until the next chapter. Stay with us. Jack's story is far from over. The dungeon beneath the great palace was a tomb of damp stone and despair, the air heavy with mildew and the distant screams of forgotten prisoners. Jack Harper sat on the cold floor, his wrists chafed from iron shackles, his mind racing. He'd done the impossible, exposed Governor Marcellus's corruption and Father Gregory's treasonous plot to overthrow Emperor Maurice, all with a stolen ledger and a few sheets of parchment. The Daily Beacon had become a legend in Constantinople, its words sparking riots and hope in equal measure. But victory had a price. The emperor, though saved, saw Jack as a threat, a foreign scribe who'd stirred his city into chaos. And now, locked in darkness, Jack faced a grim truth. Truth-tellers rarely got happy endings in Byzantium. Yet Jack wasn't alone. Outside, the city roared. The agora pulsed with chants of "Free the Scribe," led by Elias, the young baker whose loyalty had become Jack's lifeline. Sophia, the cunning widow with eyes like a storm, was out there too, weaving through the crowd, her silks catching torchlight as she whispered plans to free him. Jack clung to that thought, his journalist's instinct refusing to quit. He'd survived New York's cutthroat newsrooms. He could survive this. But Father Gregory's words haunted him. The gate awaits you. A time gate. His only shot at returning to 2024. If it existed, where was it? And why did Gregory, now imprisoned somewhere in this maze, know about it? A clank at the cell door snapped Jack from his thoughts. A guard, bribed by Sophia's charm and Elias's bread, slipped him a key and a message. "Midnight. Be ready." Jack's heart surged. He unlocked his shackles, rubbing his wrists, and waited, the seconds crawling like hours. When the palace bells tolled midnight, Sophia appeared, a vision in dark velvet, her dagger glinting as she silenced another guard. "Move, American," she whispered, her voice a mix of urgency and allure. Elias followed, clutching a torch, his face pale but fierce. "The city's with you," he said, "but we've got to run." They slipped through the palace's labyrinthine corridors, dodging patrols as shouts echoed from the streets above. Sophia led them to a hidden passage behind a mosaic of St. Peter, her market connections yielding secrets even the emperor didn't know. The trio emerged in a deserted courtyard, where a crowd waited, their faces lit by flickering torches. "Jack! Jack!" they chanted, a sea of merchants, laborers, and soldiers who'd read the Daily Beacon and seen truth for the first time. Jack's chest swelled. He'd come to Byzantium a stranger, but now he was their voice. Sophia handed him a fresh parchment. "Write," she urged. "One last time." Jack hesitated, then scrawled a message. "The emperor is safe. The traitors are caught, but the truth lives in you. Keep asking questions. Elias pinned it to a pillar, and the crowd roared, passing the words like wildfire. But the moment was cut short. Hooves thundered, and imperial guards stormed the courtyard, led by a new figure, General Cassius, a scarred veteran loyal to Maurice. "Seize the scribe," he bellowed. Sophia grabbed Jack's arm, pulling him toward an alley, but Cassius's men were fast. Elias threw his torch, sparking chaos, and the trio bolted, the crowd shielding them with shouts and shoves. They reached a crumbling church on the city's edge, its walls etched with faded crosses. Sophia barred the door, her breath ragged. "This is it," she said, pointing to a trapdoor beneath the altar. The priest spoke of it, a gate below. Jack's pulse raced. The time gate? He lifted the trapdoor, revealing a spiral staircase, descending into darkness. Elias hesitated. "What if it's a trap?" he asked. Jack grinned, his old recklessness flaring. "Then it's the best story I'll ever chase." The stairs led to a cavern, its walls carved with runes that glowed faintly, just like the stone in New York that had brought him here. At the center stood a stone arch, pulsing with an eerie blue light. Jack's breath caught. This was it, the way home. But as he stepped closer, a voice echoed from the shadows. Father Gregory, bloodied but alive, emerged, freed by allies Jack hadn't anticipated. "You can't leave," Gregory rasped, his eyes wild. "The gate is ours, a tool to shape empires, not for your escape." He lunged, a dagger flashing, but Sophia was faster, her own blade catching his wrist. Gregory fell, cursing, as Elias dragged him back. Jack faced the arch, its light hypnotic, promising home, New York, coffee, Wi-Fi. But the crowd's chant still echoed above, and Sophia's hand rested on his shoulder, warm and steady. "You've changed this city," she said, her voice soft but fierce. "Will you abandon it?" Elias nodded, his eyes pleading. Jack's heart tore. He'd given Byzantium truth, but at what cost? If he stayed, he'd face Cassius's wrath. If he left, he'd lose the people who'd become his family. And what was the gate, really? A door to 2024, or a trap set by Gregory's mysterious allies? He stepped back, the arch's glow fading. "Not yet," he said, his voice firm. "We've got a city to save." Sophia's smile was a spark in the dark, and Elias clapped his shoulder. They climbed back to the surface. The crowd's roar greeting them like thunder. Jack was no longer just a journalist, he was a legend. But as they slipped into the night, a new figure watched from the rooftops, cloaked and silent, holding a rune-carved stone identical to the one that had brought Jack here. Who were they? And what did they want with the gate? Jack's story doesn't end here. The Time Gate secrets, the Emperor's next move, and the mysterious Watcher promise a saga that's only beginning. Will Jack return to 2024, or become Byzantium's greatest rebel? Subscribe and join us for the next chapter. You won't believe what's coming.